Hello, I'm Rob, alright?
Hello everyone and welcome to Walford Weekly, your weekly EastEnders podcast, where this week we'll be discussing the episodes released on the BBC in the UK from Monday the 6th to Thursday the 9th of March 2023. My name is Alex and as always I am joined by my comprende, Robert. Hello Rob, how are you?
I'm alright. Alex, where are you? I can't see you.
I
Alex!
can't see you
Alex!
I know. For anyone who may be watching the podcast on YouTube, we do apologise. Standard problems that we seem to have, and because of time restraints this week, we're going to have to pump it out as an audio. So if you're listening to this right now, we weren't able to fix the problems, and this is what you're getting. So like it or lump it, all right? Just get on with it.
Yeah. All right, get aggressive. Oh my God. Save it for the email that you're going to send to the people that are in charge of our visuals, Alex.
Oh, I will. I mean, I've got a many strongly worded email to send to not just them, but also our podcatcher, our previous podcatcher. But anyway, enough of that. Let's talk about
full on Karen mode.
I am full on. What is it? Kevin, isn't it? A male Karen.
Karen.
No, male Karen.
Oh, I've not heard that before. Is it a Kevin? I've not heard that before.
I can't remember. It's something like that. Yeah, I know what a Karen is.
Oh, okay.
I've seen enough TikTok to know what a Karen is. Trust me. But anyway, look, we've got lots to talk about. We've got EastEnders to talk about.
Yes.
So we just pile it straight in, and we're going to begin with the sad story yet again of Whitney and Zack and the kind of fallout of everything that happened last week. Whitney was very desperate to get out of the hospital, kind of too many memories of everything that happened, everything that occurred. Zack kind of wanted her to mourn a little bit more. Monday's episode was pretty much consumed with their story, where you kind of saw their two stories kind of divert, where Zack was a grieving father and Whitney was a grieving mother. And as the week progressed, you saw how legally Whitney had very few rights for where she could go forward from here. And Zack felt a little bit like he was kind of being singled out. Everyone felt sorry for Whitney, but he kind of reminded people that, you know, he'd lost baby Peach as well, which I thought was a really sentimental moment, especially between him and Linda in the Vic.
Yes.
Again, great scenes this week. Monday's episode was absolutely heart-wrenching, honestly.
Yes, it was. It was really, really, Monday was really, really good. And some great performances again from the two main players. I was really surprised, but I don't think I knew this, about this whole 24-month thing and bereavement leave and all that kind of thing. I feel like it would have been nice if we had a scene where Whitney had told Mr. Lister, like, do one. Like, do one, I'm having as much time off as I want, and there's nothing you can do about it. And if you want my pitch, then... Do you know what I mean? Because that is just like...
Well, yeah, he was hiding behind
those people
Honey,
that just play by the rules.
I know,
yeah, exactly. Poor Honey was... Poor Honey, who was just sort of left to deal with this bad news, who clearly didn't agree with any of it, but had sort of delivered the fact that, look, you can have a week and I'm afraid that's all I can offer you. It's bad. It's really bad.
And on International Women's Day, as we were reminded constantly on Tuesday's episode.
Yes. I'd forgotten all about International Women's Day. And what a day it is too.
It's a wonderful day, don't get me wrong. It's just that there were so many scenes this week in EastEnders where like all the women were like walking around going, it's International Women's Day. Did you know it's International Women's Day?
They do that, don't they?
I know that
they do
now.
That on occasions.
They do. They like a cause, don't they, old EastEnders?
Bless them. So yeah, it's all very sad. I mean, it was mainly just on Monday, this storyline, but it did its job. Like the Monday's episode was really great, and I love those scenes with Zack and the guy in the chapel in the hospital. That was some really strong stuff in there.
I mean, he was boasting, wasn't he? He was boasting big time that obviously they have their third child, and I mean, he obviously wasn't to know that the kind of the boast that he was doing the person he was doing it in front of wasn't in a state of mind where they really wanted to hear that right now. It took Zack a long time though to kind of show his intolerance to it. In the end, he kind of just like, go away, and the guy was just like, no, I'm going to tell you all about my children and our happy family life. And Zack was like, just go away, please, leave me alone.
Yeah, bless him. So I mean, where does it go from here then? Because I think Zack's kind of main concern at the moment is trying to kind of make sure Whitney's okay. I think he's basically now falling in love with Whitney, obviously. Because they've been through such an emotional, tumultuous time together. And I think Whitney's sort of just pushing people away at the moment. She's in that mode, an perfectly understandable mode. But I wonder if she's going to sort of kind of welcome Zack back into her life at some point when, you know, the numbness has sort of calmed down from it.
Yeah, she's
or what do you think?
Well, she's pushing him away, isn't she? She doesn't really want much to do with Zack now, and perhaps because it's a reminder of the child they lost, poor baby Peach. They had that moment together where they felt like they were healing each other at the hospital at the end of Monday's episode, but then as soon as they got back, Whitney almost saw the signs that Zack was kind of trying to be helpful, get into her life maybe a little bit more than she was more comfortable to let him be. And so there was that scene on the bench, wasn't there, when she kind of just got up and said, "You're not part of my life anymore," and then walked away.
No, I feel nothing.
That's it, and that's it. And she kind of has just basically made the cut, and now it doesn't want anything to do with Zack. I mean, and we're still lingering in the background. The story, obviously, Zack. It's a HIV diagnosis as well, which we keep bringing up, and we keep wondering if this is going to be part of the problem in Whitney's mind as well. But that's still lingering in the background, still waiting for that to happen. But if Whitney's already pushing him away because she doesn't like the thought or the memory of the connection between them with Peach, how's the fallout going to be when she is going to have that come out?
I know it's going to be. I think there's some tricky stuff coming up for Zack. I think because he is at some point going to have to sort of kind of tell Whitney absolutely everything that's kind of been going on with his life. It would explain a lot of his sort of quietness at the start of the pregnancy and why he was sort of trying to run away from it all. But I just, it's really, really sad for Whitney. But I think, the point that Zack made to Linda was like, I'm grieving too. Hello, and I don't think anybody apart from Sharon was really paying that much attention to kind of what Zack was feeling. Yeah. I mean, obviously, Whitney's perfectly within her rights to be like, hello, But at the same time, I think it's very easy to sort of forget about the father in that situation because obviously the mother has to go through something not only emotionally but physically as well to make any of that to happen. So I think Zack is sort of taking a back step as he should, but also kind of hoping that people sort of recognise that he is going through something similar, if not the full kind of the full experience, so to speak.
How do you feel about how people's reaction has been around Zack? Because there was that line with Mr. Lister this week as well that Honey relayed to Whitney, which was that if this is it's as much as saying basically everyone's feeling sorry for the woman but not the man, so why should he give her the time off when the man's not getting the time off as well? Mr. Lister obviously wasn't aware that she's not in a relationship or anything like that, but that kind of like it insinuated that perhaps people aren't really showing any affection towards Zack and the heartbreak he's been through. Do you think, and this isn't me trying to stir a pot or anything like that, but do you think that we should show more of more feeling toward Whitney because she's had to physically go through it, while Zack has kind of more emotionally gone through it and not had the physical pain as well?
I think it is more traumatic for Whitney because of the fact that not only are you having to go through the pain that she had to go through physically, to have to miscarry the baby this late into her pregnancy. But it's also the fact that you've become physically and emotionally and psychologically attached to the baby that is growing inside you, and you're planning out for the future, and this baby is becoming a part of you. So then for it to almost kind of be ripped away from you in that is absolutely devastating. And it's something that I think is obviously going to have to be a very unique feeling to what a woman has to go through in that situation. The thing with Lister, basically complaining that the men don't get as much attention to the women, I think was more just a sort of old man sexist sort of rant, old man shouting at cloud sort of thing, really, wasn't it? It was just him sort of trying to kick off about something. And I don't think Zack was sort of would sort of delay putting Whitney first in any of this, but he needs to sort of look after himself as well. I think him and Sharon are going to have to sort of look after each other quite a lot at this point. Sharon's going to have to step up. So I think, where it goes from here remains to be seen. But I think him and Whitney are kind of at loggerheads at the moment purely because they don't know how to react to each other. I think if they'd been in a relationship from the start, then it might have been easier for them because they could have sort of mentally prepared for everything because of the way that this baby was conceived and the fact that it basically came from a one-night stand, so they were forced to be a lot closer to each other than they possibly had planned originally. Yeah. It sort of gives them it's sort of they're sort of on uneven ground. That's difficult to say. Wow. I'm so glad that this wasn't audio, this wasn't visual, because my face had to do all sorts of contortions to get that phrase out of my mouth there. So yeah, Zack is Zack's doing well, I think, but I think Whitney's going to struggle. I think she's going to keep pushing Zack away until she's ready to sort of accept what's happened and sort of welcome Zack back into her life again.
It's such a harsh law, isn't it? Because as you said earlier.
I had no idea.
I had no idea about that. If it was before 24 weeks,
that's crazy.
Of term, that it's technically, to paraphrase, it's technically not alive. It never existed. That child never existed.
Yeah, that's mental, isn't it?
Horrible. Like, I don't know if it's kind of linked to, I don't know, abortion laws or something like that. So obviously this is where it was a very difficult situation for Whitney to kind of consider this to be in, but to still not to allow a woman to have kind of, grievance over this child is terrible.
Yeah, and the fact that the chances are you're not going to be confronted with this until you're actually in that situation. And then you suddenly have to realise that, oh no, actually, I'm only allowed at the very most a week off work to deal with what has just probably been one of the most traumatic things I've ever had to go through in my life. And then I've got to be back at work, smiling and keeping my life back to normal. That's insane.
And take it as holiday as well. You have to take it as a holiday entitlement.
What?
As long as it falls on a bank holiday, you're fine. It's like, God.
That's mental.
Really
honestly, that's
mad law,
wrong on all levels.
I have to say, that needs to be looked at. That really does need to be looked at, because that's just insane. I just couldn't believe it when that came out. I mean, again, a good bit of digging by the
very good bit of digging, and bringing it out on International Women's Day. It was correct, I think.
Was it International Women's Day? I didn't know that. I wasn't aware.
Yeah, confront it. Too right.
But yeah, so awful, terrible time. I mean, this. Being a male, I feel like I am, sadly.
Oh.
I feel like I'd be interested to see kind of like how Zack, because Zack seems to be kind of like patching up the problems, and it's very keen to kind of try to have this conversation with Whitney, while Whitney's not keen to have it back. And I'd like to see a bit more of Zack's side of it, but that's not to take away anything that the pain that Whitney is going through right now.
No.
But I was glad that the show kind of signposted it and made the characters aware, made Linda aware and other characters aware that Zack is in this situation too. But like I say, it's a painful and awful situation. It's a situation I would desperately not want to be landed into, and I just, oh my goodness, my heart absolutely just broke for them, and it's breaking for them.
It was EastEnders at its very best on Monday, I think, in terms of its character studies and the emotion and the grittiness of it. It's just something that the soap can kind of do so easily and so well that you can't touch EastEnders when it's on that reign. Then no other soap does it better. So yeah, it was a great episode Monday, and I liked the sort of going around the square and everybody sort of doing the card.
Oh, right, in the notes,
yeah. Weirdly and madly, and we'll talk about Vi later, but Vi's message to Whitney was the one that actually really moved me. I thought that was a really, really nice character moment. I was like, oh well, what a nice thing for Vi. I'm so glad they're giving attention to Vi again. We'll speak about that later.
We'll be moving on to that. No doubt. As you say, the notes that they were sharing, and the potted plant. I thought that was nice as well, because a potted plant you nurture, you can grow. Flowers, they die, but a potted plant, you give that to someone and they nurture. Connection. I know. I thought, again, very thoughtfully written and very thoughtfully planned out. There was a little part of me that thought that perhaps, the notes that they all had written, whether that was going to somehow be linked to the flash forward story. Whether there would be like some kind of handwriting diagnosis, and that was going to be linked. But no, I don't know. I'm always thinking ahead now with that flash forward story. It's just one of those things.
It's not going to be the sort of situation where Whitney wrote "Go to Hell" in Lucy's funeral book. I don't think we're quite at that level yet. No.
Or Abby walking around in a Halloween costume, following her sister and stalking her
as a weeping angel. Yeah, no, nothing like that in this story. It's all going to be very nice. Yeah, so there we are then.
Money problems for Stacey this week. She has been desperately trying to get some money up. She's been asking around, the immediate area. Like they did, again, shorthand for we need help is look for jobs around the immediate area where you live, or you've run out of bread, as we mentioned last week. But Jean, being ever as resourceful as ever, has got a cleaning job of evening now with Stacey, where they're kind of cleaning up the mess of these office parties.
Clean Slater is back.
Clean Slater is back with their leopard skin tarps.
Yeah, forgot about them.
And in desperation, because Stacey is so desperate for money, because this week we also found out that Lily's skirts are getting too tight because of the pregnancy. She needs a new pair of trainers for Arthur. She steals some petty cash from The Office.
Yes,
and
I would, I think I would.
But it's don't you think it's
you're
obvious?
Being forced.
Hey?
Well, maybe, but the fact that I think the inclination was that they'd have this mad party in this office and then sort of just carelessly lock the money away. So whatever money they lose in that situation, as far as I'm concerned, is their own fault. Especially when you consider, put yourself in Stacey's shoes, right? You are Brassic. You've got about 17 people living in your house, with 28 children running around your feet that you need to feed, and Freddie.
Freddie's just
and then you get foot. Yeah, she's all right. And then you take into this office that you've got to clean. That's got some of the. You can just imagine the massive party they would have had. They made the point of the fact that the champagne they were drinking was probably cost more in one bottle than the Slaters spent on their shopping in a week, and they was just sort of spraying it at windows and just being the most obnoxious people you can imagine. And then they leave probably looks about 2-3 grand just kind of sitting there. I'd take it. Too right. I don't blame Stacey at all for this.
I mean, they are just throwing cash around as if it's water, literally.
They don't need it.
Chucking the champagne down the sink. They're extinguishing cigars in a bottle of champagne. I mean, that did bring me. Wow, it did bring me back to my party days. Remember, I think we may have talked about this on the podcast before, when you kind of wake up in the morning after a party and you find a can of beer or Coke, and you think, I'll take a swig of that just to kind of wet my whistle.
Yeah.
And it ends up being just full of cigarettes and just
lovely student days. They were the days. Those days. Can't do that anymore. Christ alive. So, I mean, how is this? What's going to happen here? Is Stacey going to get caught? Is there going to be some sort of CCTV in the office? Are they going to catch her out? How much money do you think she stole? It looked to be about 500 quid or so, didn't it?
It's quite a chunk, wasn't it?
It was quite a chunk. I think she just grabbed a handful.
Yeah, ran. But again,
yoink, take that.
Yoink. Stay Homer Simpson. It was again really well portrayed, because you kind of saw her close the cupboard, and you were meant to believe that she kind of just walked away from the situation.
Moral high ground, walked away from the situation. And then when she did that, I was like, that doesn't seem in character for Stacey whatsoever. Why is she doing that? And then she's like, oh, there you go, welcome back, girl. Yeah, missed you. There we are.
I loved Jean's turmoil that her biggest problem when they got home was whether she just goes straight to sleep or have a piece of toast.
We've all been there.
We have.
We've all been there,
again,
Alex.
The
best thing to do in that situation, I find, is to go in the kitchen, sit down to eat your toast, and then pass out, and you wake up the next morning with 2 bits of toast stuck to your face that you've just sort of leant against the kitchen table. I've done that.
I've done it on more than one occasion.
Many an occasion.
Or a cold pizza, just sitting there.
The amount of times I've woken up next to a pizza in the fetal position. Many a time.
And you look at it and you think, will that be okay for lunch later? And you think, well, if I put it in the fridge now, it's only been 8 hours in the ripe air. Yeah, it'll be fine. Oh, I'll have that a bit later.
The ripe air. Do you live in an orchard?
It feels like that when you wake up. God, the hangover.
It does,
especially in the summer.
Oh, can't do it now. Anyway, so is she going to get caught? Is she going to get caught? Are the Slaters going to be in even more trouble after this? Probably.
Oh, I feel so sorry for her. I mean, this is again a story that we've seen happen in the past before. Pat stole money when she was desperate for money in the past, and so she needs a saviour. She needs an angel to come and help her out. And
thieves never prosper in Walford. I don't think, do they?
The problem. Tea leaves, they do not.
Yes.
But I believe that Martin returns next week, so I'd be interested to know what Martin's kind of take on.
He'll be rolling in it. All his weeks of bricking, or whatever he was being a roofer.
He's bricking it.
Yeah. Martin bricks it. That's our title for next week. So that would be good then. So Martin comes back and he will sort of. Has much happened? What has happened in the Slater family since Martin has been away? In terms of nothing's really changed as such. They're still skinned, but they're just sort of.
Well, they're more skinned.
They're trying hard. They're more skinned, but they're trying harder to sort of make money.
And Eve doesn't seem to be wanting to share any of the money that she's been.
Eve's busy.
This week, which I know she's busy, but she's still earning. She's earning her crust, and it was another big chunk in a white envelope. So I think Eve seems to be keeping a bit of money to one side. I wouldn't be surprised if you see her kind of doing a bit of a up and turn, yeah.
So that her and Suki can run away together.
That's right. To Portugal or something, get themselves a villa. I do feel sorry for Stacey. Like I say, it's such a tight situation for her right now, and it's so tricky. And did you notice also there was a hint this week of their relationship? How Lily felt about Whitney and Zack losing the child. Again, there's all these rumours going around, isn't there, that Lily's going to give up her child.
I know, this is what I think I might have started this rumour. I do think that it seems it just seems odd to me that they were both pregnant at the same time. You know what I mean? Like, everything happens for a reason in an era like this. So you've kind of got to think, is something going to... I feel like Lily's pregnant... Because I feel like all the complications that could and perhaps should have arisen with Lily's pregnancy have been sort of forgotten about because of the fact that this baby is necessary further down the line. Yeah, so I think that with Lily... all the complications that maybe should have arisen with her, they've kind of been forgotten about because of the fact that this baby is necessary further down the line. And I do wonder if Whitney is going to end up with this baby. It seems like the sort of obvious direction for it to go. But having said that, I was thinking this when I was watching it this week with the Jack and Ravi stuff, that most storylines have kind of been making you think they're going to go in one direction and then they go wildly off in another. Right. So making predictions at the moment seems like a silly thing to do, but it just seemed that the baby should maybe be heading towards Whitney. I don't know. It depends how they're going to deal with Lily kind of being a mother and what the story there is going to be. I'm excited to see what happens though.
You are right. The storylines, every time we make a prediction, I mean, there was times when we were hot, we were on fire with our predictions, and recently we've not been so hot.
No, it's like they're doing it just to annoy us.
Which I'm glad about. I like being annoyed because I like to be surprised. Same. So yes, we like to be kept on our toes. You've mentioned it just now, so we're going to go straight into the next story, which is Jack, Denise and Ravi's story, which is kind of nicely intertwined also with Callum, Ben and Vi's story as well. First of all, Callum is now a full-blown detective.
Well, he's a trainee detective, Alex. Yes, that's what they said. He's a trainee detective, which is why he's the one that's being kind of having things written on his computer, and he's the one that's being forced to sit and just watch boring CCTV for hours. That's what you get the lackeys to do.
It's like
what you get the lackeys to do.
I know. Yeah, it's like a prison for a trainee detective, isn't it?
Trainee, and I love them. I can say I've said it before, but I think it just seems like the Jack's just now his boss. They've got two coppers, and they've had two coppers living in the square together for so long. The both they've never met before, effectively in their jobs, and now they're just sort of putting them together because it just makes sense and it's just easier. All right, so yeah, I think that does work in that respect. But Callum is now part of CID, so we don't get to see Callum in his policeman's uniform anymore, which I can guarantee will be disappointing. Which will be disappointing for some. I realise that. Okay, but this is the days of Callum Inspector Detective. So well, he is, because this whole thing with Ravi is unfolding. Like, we don't really know. We got a little hint from Ravi this week about what might be going on when he was on the phone to somebody. Like, he said something about, we'll talk on the app that we both created. It was like, right,
that surprised me as well. I know when he said that, I had to rewind it because I thought he must have said WhatsApp. He must have said the WhatsApp group or something along those lines. But no. They've created an app.
Criminal WhatsApp.
A criminal WhatsApp.
Effectively a thing. Yes, where you discuss all the murders and everything, and the thievery and the burglary and general shenanigans that you get up to.
End-to-end encryption.
So Callum's been given the job of basically just watching all CCTV. Now, this is dangerous for a start, because now they're basically implying that there's CCTV all around Walford, which puts so much of previous storylines into...
Don't.
And it's like, let's not even go there.
Don't get me started on that,
honestly,
Rob. You really want to wind up the beast.
No,
because he will
I don't want to wind up
out.
anything, because this is what I mean. Well, this is what I mean, because they started flicking through all these cameras that are around Walford. Like, one literally trained on Walford East, and I'm just sort of like, oh, God. Like, where, you know now that anything happens in the future, people are going to go, oh, what about the CCTV camera on Walford East? What, didn't that see anything? It's just dangerous.
Really clear as well, CCTV.
Really clear, HD ready to go.
Zoom in like CSI.
Zooming in. It's just like, you're just putting yourself in trouble when you're bringing up stuff like this, honestly.
I honestly thought, I turned to Ben and I said, I just really, really wish, I desperately wanted them to troll us and put in line of like, and they've just fixed the CCTV in the tube station.
Camera for 2023.
I really want...
and it will be broken after this storyline's finished, I hope they'll make some scene of Ravi breaking that camera, because it needs to happen, otherwise it's just there in the background at all times, isn't it? There's a camera trained on Albert Square at all times. That just wrecks anything that they want to keep hidden. They
will never be forgiven for that CCTV when Kush got killed at that tube station. I swear to goodness.
I know.
That was a moment. That really was. And so as you say,
there's
now the best. I mean, you could argue that because of that incident, the police decided...
That's why.
Exactly. They decided to put
As a
4K,
response
1080p,
to the incompetence.
HD, yeah, CCTV system around the whole of Walford. And that's why they can now follow Ravi from the club to Peggy's to Walford East to the hotel.
Dangerous.
And at the hotel, Callum spotted that he was having a secret rendezvous. And the secret rendezvous, they are going to regret it, with Denise.
You say this. This camera was just trained on the entrance to the hotel, right? So, like, he saw Ravi going in, and then a few minutes later saw Denise going in. Now, I think that Callum made this connection that something was going on with Denise purely because he had seen two people that he knows in this little bit of CCTV. I mean, it would be like me watching you on CCTV and then seeing my mate Keith in the same picture, like, oh my god, Alex and Keith are having an affair. Well, no, but you know, do you know what I mean? Though it's that sort of connection.
Sorry, Keith.
You know.
I mean, I don't think it's too far of a leap. I mean, I would.
No, it was a hotel.
I was going to say I would call out anything idiotic if it came down to Detective Callum like spotting something. But I would say on this occasion that I don't think it's too far of a leap to say that Ravi going to a hotel, then half an hour later you see Denise at the same hotel, dressed up as well. You could see that on the HD CCTV. She made an effort when she went there.
Each sequin glistening away beautifully because of the quality of the cameras.
Each eye twinkled like a star in the sky.
Yes. Like, you remember those Remember in the 90s when the game show host used to like Cilla Black used to have a sparkly thing and it used to just glisten away throughout the entire show. These little silver lights just clicking around their body.
Diane Parrish really is the London Cilla Black, and I will fight anyone who says otherwise.
Surprise!
So I get it, and poor Callum, tortured Callum. I mean, you know, he took a leaf out of Vinny's book this week. Tortured Callum. He didn't know what to think. He was having his chips outside the fish bar, and he saw Denise and Ravi having that conversation, and he thought, oh, what do I do? And on his second day of being a detective, he had to lie to Jack about what he saw on that CCTV. That's not good.
I know, it's getting messy already for poor Callum. It's his first day of CCTV and he's already finding himself with the same old police problems. Yeah. Bless him.
But not with Ben. Not with Ben.
Not with Ben.
Well, this is clean shaven. This is new Ben. People smuggling was a thing of the past.
Ben's lack of angst recently has done wonders for him, hasn't it? Like, he just seems like a happier person. His skin's cleared up. He's had a shave. He's getting drunk. He's having a lovely time. Ben had a lovely time this week. Ben was having the time of his life, just being happy Ben, which is something, frankly, I don't think Max Bowden has had to act over the past 5 years that he's been playing this role. So it's nice to see. And frankly, also, it's nice for Callum to have a storyline of his own, because I don't think that's happened since him and Ben got together either. So it's not, we might take the mick, and we will take the mick because it amuses us, but in all fairness, Callum having his own little story is a great thing to see, because he can be his own individual character and have his own little story. I guess Ben will get involved at some point, I'm sure, because he's Ben, but it's nice for Callum to just have this branch to play with on his own, so it's good to see. So I'm pleased. I'm very pleased to see it.
It's also a mad twist. Who would have thought that Callum would be the one who'd be like mixed in with this storyline? It's like, of all people, I would have thought like she'd be caught by her daughter Chelsea or something like that. Not Callum.
Well, I wonder if Chelsea's going to start getting involved again soon, because with I think because he's trying to wind up Denise and he's doing it very successfully. I wonder if he will just sort of kind of float back in Chelsea's direction and sort of try, because he managed to kind of persuade Chelsea quite quickly, I thought. So I think he'll be able to do it again. And that will just keep winding, because I think does it seem to you that the Denise and Ravi thing is probably at an end now in terms of her fancying him and her wanting to sleep with him? I feel like the temptation has kind of been quashed now, don't you?
I think that you're right. I think the temptation from Denise has died. However, I don't think the temptation from Ravi has, and I think now Denise has, rightly or wrongly, I would say stupidly, told Ravi that he is now being watched by the police and their secret app. That now Ravi's got even more of a powerful hand to play against her, and now he's got her to basically find out as much information from Jack and the police to then pass on to him. And I got a funny feeling that he might take it even further and kind of almost force a sexual act on, to keep her out of trouble, because he's now got the upper hand, which Denise openly gave him as well.
Yeah,
she didn't need to
Denise.
I know she didn't need to tell him that information, because as long as she didn't hang around with, because I think in her mind she thought that if I tell Ravi I don't want you kind of hanging around with me anymore, Callum doesn't have anything to find on CCTV anymore. But really, unless they're kind of like deliberately bumping into each other. And on the square, it doesn't matter, because they all live on the square together. So unless it's in a hotel, for argument's sake, there's not really much for her to worry about, is there?
Well, exactly, because basically the basis of Denise and Ravi's interactions in the past few weeks have been Denise storming up to Ravi and saying, stop playing games with me, and just storming off again.
It's all her.
So, yeah, it has been all her. So, which I think Ravi's perfectly aware of. So, I think this card that he's been dealt with by Denise is just going to play fully into his hands, because he's basically just turned around to her and said, okay, so thanks for that information. You're now going to find out more information for me, because if you don't, I'm going to tell Jack everything. So, it's interesting now, I think, because I think we're going to discover what's going on with Ravi, and Denise's involvement in the big old Christmas story. I think is going to start to unfold. Yeah, Denise is involved in all this, so presumably this is the start of Denise's kind of branch of that big old Christmas tree.
Yes,
that is going to that's going to start unfurling. So I'm intrigued to see what happens next.
So it makes
I like the way this is playing out, though. I like the fact that they didn't go down the predictable route of Jack and Ravi suddenly becoming mates, so that when it's discovered, the betrayal is tender. This is a much more interesting route for it to go down. So I'm happy. I'm very happy with where it's all going, and I can't wait to see what happens next. It's genuinely quite exciting.
And it makes us think that maybe Ravi's the one on the floor in the Vic. There's another victim that could be added to the list.
He may well be. You kind of wonder. With the way that the Panasars currently are, in terms of their rapidly depleting numbers, whether effectively just leaving Suki and Vinny at the end of it, if you get rid of Nish on Christmas Day, what happens to the Panasars from that point onwards? So maybe it is Ravi. I think Ravi would be more disposable in that sense, but at the same time, like, where do you take Nish in long-term usage? So it's intriguing, but I do, at the minute, it does seem that sort of Panasar connection is going to be what's on the floor, but we have got another 9 months to go before we find out, so...
Yeah. Before we jump to the Panasar story, we do have to say our first goodbye of this week, which was Vi. Vi Highway has gone.
She's taken the highway.
Because she wants to become a nanny, while Stuart continues his taxidermy work and his night job working in a nightclub. I mean, I know you loved Vi, but let's be honest, she didn't really cause much of an impact on the show.
Let me clarify this.
Let's say.
No, let me clarify this when I say I loved Vi. I didn't find her offensive as everybody else seemed to, and I was aware that I was probably the only person that felt like that. She wasn't offensive, and I quite liked her. In terms of, stroppy old woman is something that I normally get quite amused by, but I was kind of waiting for. Yeah, because it's me. And I was kind of waiting for Vi's involvement in whatever was going on in the square to sort of become apparent, because you forget sometimes when kind of new producers come in and they do their acting things. When Stuart and Rainey left and Vi was left behind, you're kind of like, oh right, so he must have plans for Vi. When in reality, it was more probably the case that Kleiners came in and just decided to remove that whole section of the show, Vi included. But he had to wait until Gwen Taylor's contract ran through, I would presume. But it was just irritating because they did this thing, because I thought Vi was actually quite good for the most part this week. When she was signing her card for Whitney, I thought that was quite a nice moment. And then she started talking to Patrick about how the situation, with Whitney had reminded her of everything that's going on. A storyline, by the way, that seems totally just for usage when Vi is leaving. We don't talk about it while she's on the show in normal circumstances, but the kid that she kind of gave away is only what we talk about when Vi's leaving.
I know, and it was such a good story as well. When they introduced that story for Vi, I was really excited about it, that she had a child. It wasn't her husband either. It was out of wedlock, if my memory serves me right.
Yeah.
And it had Down syndrome.
And
so she gave it up. And I thought, what a wonderful story. And then they didn't take it any further.
Great story. And then she went off to look for him, came back. We didn't hear one solitary syllable about what had happened with this storyline when she returned, and then Vi did nothing for the rest of her time there, and then it got brought up again this week on the week that Vi was leaving. It's just disappointing. It's not the fact that I was seeing something in Vi that I don't don't think people were seeing, because what was there to see? Because Vi was barely ever used as a character, which I think was a waste of a character and an actress. But it was just the frustration of what could have been. You know, because like you said, there was a good enough story there, and when Vi was having those softer moments, she was all right, and she was watchable, and she was, you know, there was something interesting about her. But when she was just doing what she did 90% of the time, which was just sort of caterwauling in the back of scenes, it kind of puts you off her. So it's not like I'm going to miss her terribly. I liked her, but it's not like I'm going to be talking to you in... Well, I'm not going to be talking to you at all. But I'm not going to be talking to my new co... Oh, well,
Rob,
you know what I mean.
No, I mean, on a, didn't you?
On a mic. I mean, on a mic. And saying... Oh, I miss Vi. Of course I'm not going to miss... of course I'm not going to be missing Vi in like 6 months' time, you know? She was pretty much a non-entity for most of her time on the show, which I think was a shame. But, you know, and I liked her little thing with Patrick as well. I thought that was quite nice, you know? So it's kind of a shame, but at the same time, never mind. You know, I doubt she'll be back. There's no need for her to come back, really. So, yeah, that's that done, I guess. Yeah. Highways are over, apart from Callum, who's now effectively a Mitchell, so...
Well,
bye.
yes, I know. It's goodbye, Vi. Yeah, I don't think she's going to make much of a mark on the show, sadly. But it's a shame. But it's like I think you've summed up pretty well. It's just what it is. We had another exit this week as well, which is revolving around the Panasars. They're getting very fruity, old Suki and Eve, aren't they? I mean, so
go to hotels, honestly, hotels.
I know, going all over the place. Where do they go?
Leeds.
Leeds. That's right. They went out to Leeds. I mean, Leeds. It's not the most. Sorry to anyone who lives in Leeds, but I wouldn't have said it's the most romantic.
With Leeds.
Well, I don't know. I've never been.
Did you have a bad date in Leeds, Alex? Tell us the story. What happened in Leeds?
It's not as bad as Bristol, but that's for another day.
Bristol. We'll have a conversation about that off mic.
Bristol.
Oh,
everyone loves Bristol,
it was not the shizzle for me. Let me tell you, that's all I can say.
The shizzle in Bristol. No way. Yeah, Suki is finding excuses to spend time with Eve. And their grand plan was that they were going to try to get rid of Nish. But Nish kind of lost his temper this week because he felt like that he was being bulldozed by Suki. So again, he was showing his masculinity. He didn't like to be the one who's not making the family's decisions. He says, I sit at the head of the table. Just remember that. At the same time, Suki is kind of like convincing Ash to go and take her dream job in Canada. But doing it in such a way that she's kind of pretending that she's, you know, she wouldn't care less and that she's kind of she wants her to go, if that makes sense. But then it comes out that, you know, she was doing it deliberately to kind of like get her to leave because Nish was so desperate to keep her to stay. And then that led to Ash having a conversation with her dad about maybe letting the reins off Suki a little bit, because if you keep a caged animal caged for too long, they start to bite. And so Nish took heed of that and organised for Suki to go to Leeds instead, to organise the family business up there. But Eve was sent with her to look after her. And boy, did she look after her, as the photos would portray.
Put some colour back into Suki's cheeks, didn't it?
Didn't it just?
Yes, and you only forget about, you only realise about freedom when it's taken away from you. That was the other sort of philosophical line that came out of Nish this week. Well, considering it came from him, it's a bad thing, but I quite like that line. I thought that was quite deep. Right. Yes, so all of this is going on now. Suki and Eve's little selfie, I am sure, went like wildfire around social media because they are a very popular couple at the moment. So I think Suki Eve is their joint name, which it kind of works, doesn't it? It's better than the Suk Honey thing that was around at one point. Do you remember?
Oh, hunky. Didn't we say hunky?
Hunky.
We said hunky.
Yeah, something like that. But I thought there was some quite good stuff with this week's. Before we get to Ash, the coercive control between Nish and Suki sort of ramped up a little bit more this week. There was a really kind of tense scene between them in the kitchen where, you know, Nish was pouring his wine. He gets nastier when he's had a drink, I've noticed. You know, it's the second time he's kind of had wine around him when he's been at his most sort of vile. And there was the case again this week. And he just sort of made Suki feel small and made her, you know, as though everything that goes wrong in the family is her fault. Ash leaving is her fault. And I almost felt that Suki was actually trying to make Ash... She did a bit of reverse psychology with Ash this week when they were talking about this job, where she said, yeah, you're probably right, you stay here, you're pretty rubbish at it anyway, there are people much better than you in Canada. Ash was sort of just like looked all offended and was like, right, well, I'm definitely leaving now. Yeah. And Suki was like, ah, ha, ha, ha. But I think that she was trying to get Ash away from it all, really, wasn't she? Like, she could see where the situation with Nish is going to go. She could see sort of Nish was trying to get his claws around Ash and to make her stay around, and this was her kind of only opportunity to get away from the situation. So I think that Suki actually, for quite a rare occasion with her and Ash, I was actually really kind of doing something for Ash and trying to help her and really being a mother to Ash, which is one of the frustrating reasons for me why Ash is leaving. In a similar case to Vi, it was weak for me in general of characters that should have been better kind of leaving before their potential was realised. You know,
and also they brought Ash back. It felt like there was a weird decision to bring her back to have her to leave again. Because
she did absolutely nothing.
They must have planned it that way. I feel like it must have been planned because it's such a short space of time. The contract must have been a very short contract for them to have her in. So a very strange.
Because I thought that there was such potential in the Suki and Ash relationship. There's sort of a lot hanging there in their relationship. Sort of the kind of internalized homophobia that Suki then pushed onto Ash about her own relationships, and the kind of terse, icy relationship that had been sort of established between them. That never really kind of culminated in anything because of the fact that Ash kind of kept leaving and is now left again. Yeah. So it's like we never really kind of looked really deeply into Ash and Suki's relationship, and I feel like we should have done, because that sort of mother and daughter relationship where the two of them have had so many battles over the years because of Suki's behaviour and because of the way that Suki is as a result of the way that Nish has treated her, that was kind of pushed onto Ash. I feel it's a shame that that's not now going to be explored further. Yeah. It feels like there was story potential. Unlike Vi, I feel like there was story potential for Ash that was never explored, and they just sort of let Ash kind of be as she was and just sort of floating around the square doing her GP stuff and sort of having scenes there, but not really exploring Ash as a person and exploring her role within the Panesar family. Yeah. Because I think it was established kind of quite early on that Ash and Suki were more similar than they'd like to admit.
Yes.
And there was suggestions that there could have been a darker side to Ash that we never really got to explore either. So I think it's a shame. I do.
It's weird because everything that Ash touched, all the stories she had, they seem to either disappear or just kind of be forgotten. And the characters that she kind of had any kind of relationship with all left. You know, with Peter Bill and so on.
Ikra.
And Ikra, exactly. Finley, I mean, they touched it on the episode. Like Finley said, "Oh, I guess we're not going to have our relationship anymore." And I felt like that was almost the right way of saying, like, yeah, we were thinking about putting them together, but that kind of like we've decided against. Well, we can't do anything about that now because Ash is going, which also then puts Finley in a kind of like an isolated space too.
Yeah, what's Finley doing now? Yeah, exactly.
It's like a domino, isn't it? This is what you have to look out for. It's the same with Vi. Once Stuart left with Rainey, it was like, well, what's left for Vi? Now Ash is left. What's really left for Finley? Because he's not really doing much with anyone else.
No, it's a shame. It's a shame. And now it just leaves the Panesars that were once quite a large family. Where now it sort of feels like the way the Carters kind of disintegrated quite quickly at the start of their time. Like there was quite a lot of them at one point, and now there's now literally just got Suki, Vinny, and Nish there, and then Ravi in the background as well. So it's Vinny's got a lot of and Nugget, of course. And Nugget, of course. Yeah, I love Nugget. So Vinny's got quite a lot of heavy lifting to do. Bless him.
He's not having a good time either. He's always looking tortured.
Vinny's year is not going to go well, I suspect, because now there's no more children for them to push it on. So it's all going to be pushed onto Vinny. Vinny's going to have a nervous breakdown by the end of this year. I tell you, I can see it coming on the horizon. Bless him.
I'd like you, and I've been having this conversation, this inner monologue in my head all week about what exactly has happened to the Panesars, because they kind of introduced to this loud bang, and it's not that they've become any weaker, it's just that they've become smaller, as you say, smaller in numbers. And I don't know if that's necessarily a good or a bad thing, because we've kind of always wanted the Panesars to be kind of like this very big built up family unit, and you using the Carters as a kind of like a comparison is true, because the Carters came in, there was like 6, 7, 8 of them when they first came in. And one by one, the Panesars are kind of all dripping away. I still think that Kirat's exit wasn't planned.
Yeah, no, it doesn't feel like it was planned.
And I think
like it was planned.
And that feels like that was kind of like a bump in the road for them. They had to work a way around that. But it's the fact that also, though Ravi has some involvement with the Panesar story, there doesn't seem to be much with him. So I don't consider Ravi as part of the Panesars 100%. In the sense that if there's a Mitchell storyline, normally all the Mitchells pile on together, and there's not one that's kind of left out, apart from Billy occasionally, or most of the time, until recently, obviously, because they kind of building up Billy. I'm the same as you, but then I guess in a weird way, maybe that's done deliberately, because then Suki's kind of gets more isolated with Nish, and their only saving grace is
Yeah,
Eve.
that's true.
So how are they going to kind of like maybe tear Eve away from Suki? And I still stand that I think Nish knows more about Suki and Eve than we know.
Yes. So now you said this, and I can see why you think that, absolutely. At the same time, though, I feel that Nish is so arrogant that he does not believe for a second that Suki would possibly... I think that he's so suspicious of the men around Suki, like he was with Mitch, for example, that I don't think he would consider Eve to even be an option. Because I think that Suki kind of demonstrated her homophobia quite well, because Nish at one point was sort of thinking that the only reason that she didn't want to hang around with Eve was because she was a lesbian. So I wonder if he's kind of putting her with Eve because he believes that she's the safe option. It could be that there's alternative motives there, and at the same time, having said that, I wouldn't be surprised if he's sort of got an idea about what's going on with Eve. But I do wonder if I know what you mean. I do know what you mean, and now this photograph exists as well. Which I don't think
it's in the cloud. Isn't it? It's not on her phone, but it is in the cloud.
It exists in some form. Deleting it doesn't make it disappear completely. It's a sort of it's got a sort of smoking gun, Chekhov's gun type approach to this photograph. It feels like that's going to come back into play at some point. It's a very nice picture as well. Bless them. They look like a really nice couple in that picture. It's quite
a lovely
kind of sad
photo.
to see.
They both look so genuinely happy as well. I mean, it's being paid.
I know it doesn't bode well.
Both the actresses are just such wonderful actresses, and they're playing it so well together. Incredible chemistry between them. And it's a pleasure to see them both on screen. So this is where my fear exists. I worry that there's going to be a really horrible ending for them both, in the sense that one of them, I think, and I suspect if it's going to be one of them, it'll be Eve, will die.
Yeah.
And
I hope not.
And I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know what I would do. I'd break. I don't
know. The thing is, as well, you've got that whole dangerous kind of thing with Eve dying, because there's a thing with gay characters, isn't there?
Oh yeah, they like
to call what's it called? The kill your gay trope.
Yeah.
Which I have to admit, I've never been fully behind, because I kind of always think that if you are treating gay characters the same as straight characters, you've got to put them through exactly the same sort of emotional turmoil as you have the straight characters, and straight characters lose people all the time. So do you know what I mean by that? I get why people think it exists, and they want to see just kind of gay couples happy on the screen together. But in terms of something like a drama or a soap, you've also got to kind of ask, well, where's the drama in that situation? So I wonder if the fact that Suki and Eve are so happy together at this stage in their relationship, and like having nice photographs together, and Eve as a spring in her step and Suki as a spring in her step, suggests that they're not going to stay this happy for very long. And perhaps Nish's involvement in that is going to be why. You could have a point. I'm still to be 100% convinced that he does know anything going on particularly, but I mean, I'd be intrigued to see if he does. Interesting point that you raised with it's easier to isolate Suki now with Nish from the rest of the family, because Vinny's not going to notice anything, because Vinny's Vinny.
He's too tortured.
Bless him.
He's got anxiety.
Vinny's far too tortured to notice anything. This is the man that goes and breaks into a shop and leaves glass all over his hoodie and then puts it in the laundry basket to get found. But Vinny ain't going to notice a thing. Bless him. So I think that's quite a good point, and maybe works to the storyline's favour in that case, because you've got the more people you have to hide what's going on from, makes it kind of tricky to work around sometimes. So I'm still not convinced that we might not see a return of Kira at some point in the future. Because I don't think we know how long he's in prison for, do we? He's certainly not going to be in prison for like 20 odd years or anything like that. So I wonder.
The thing, because he confessed to it, but surely there's a trial. I'm presuming he's just in custody, so he's spending
all
his
this
time.
time.
Well, yeah. So I'm presuming he's just spending his time. No. They've not paid for the bail or anything, which is also kind of odd.
They'll just have not mentioned it, and he'll be in prison now. I think.
Okay.
I think that's far more likely. But we'll have to wait and see if we ever get told. I don't know if we ever got told how long he's in prison for. If anyone knows, do let us know. Of course you will. But because they do. But I think the Suki's isolation, I think, will work better now that there's less family around her, because they have to hide it from less people. And it works for Nish completely, because he's now got more thumb to put over Suki. That's a phrase I've never used before. Is that a thing? You know what I mean, though, like under the thumb. So, it's intriguing to know where it's going to go from here. But let's see.
If just quick out of curiosity, obviously they keep mentioning that the reason Nish went to prison was because of his jealousy, because he thought that Suki was having an affair. I'm pretty confident that he was wrong in thinking that, because he thought it was a guy. We don't know for certain if he'd maybe got the wrong end of the stick, and it could have been maybe the guy's partner, female, or we don't know, because we don't know. Suki again has.
Suki told Kira what went on in that situation, and said that exactly that Nish got the wrong end of a stick and murdered the guy instead of the woman that Suki was with. So that's what makes me think that Nish doesn't know anything about what's going on with Eve, because I don't believe, because of the fact that he was so infuriated by the mere suggestion that Mitch and Suki might be hanging around together. This is why I don't think he would willingly put Eve and Suki in that situation together and give them the opportunity to grow. You know what I mean? It seemed like he's playing some really sort of dark manipulating game where he's going to completely destroy the pair of them. So I don't know.
It. Sick, twisted kind of game that he might be playing. I know what you're saying. It's just the way that every time he talks to Eve, or he's I don't know, he's just like there's something knowingly there when he talks to her. It's like when he returned Eve's sweater to her because it was in Suki's suitcase, and Suki said, "Oh, we were crunching the numbers," which is a euphemism, I'm sure. Yeah, and
he happened to be naked at the time. And Eve played a dangerous game in that scene. Actually, I thought, because she turned around to Nish at some point and went, "Yeah, let's keep this arrangement going. Got to keep Suki on a leash, haven't we? We've got to keep an eye on what Suki's doing." And Nish sort of looked at her and was kind of like, "Oh, you're going to be my accomplice in this situation, are you? That's interesting. Yeah, we'll keep." So I mean, so that automatically puts Eve in a much more dangerous situation. Because Nish, if all goes according to plan, Nish is going to be looking at her and thinking, "Oh right, yeah, so you're somebody who I can help coercively control Suki effectively." So that's dangerous.
I wondered if he was testing her, because he was asking. There was questions he asked her about when they were crunching the numbers. So something like, "Oh, you open a bottle of wine" or something like that, and he was like, "Oh yeah, haha, we." And I wondered if. Maybe I'm just looking too much into it, but I wondered if that's going to come up again later, and he will ask Suki, "Oh, so when you were having that night with you were doing this, that, and the other, what wine did you drink?" And Suki will be like, "Oh no, we didn't drink wine, we drank orange juice," something like that. And so then that will start for him to trigger, like, "Oh, hang on, why are they lying to me about what they were doing?" I don't know. I'm intrigued, and I'm loving it. I'm absolutely loving this story. It's just
same. It's really, really good, really, really good, and the chemistry on screen at the moment with this group of characters is really strong.
Excellent. And like I say, the ensemble of all of them. Not to say that in other stories they've not been, like the Ravi, Denise, Jack story. That's been a nice ensemble as well. Even with the Amy and Ricky Jr. joining. Ricky, I must quickly give a special mention of Ricky Jr. saying that Lily hates me. She won't talk to me anymore on the tweet. The text messages, bless him.
Such a young kid, isn't he? That's going to be interesting. Moving forward to sort of see Ricky's role in the baby's upbringing, wherever the baby ends up. It's going to be interesting to sort of watch him have to force to grow up from this childlike persona that he's got at the moment. Bless him.
Excellent. So, Rob, do you have a spare 5 minutes? We can have a quick chat about.
Go on then.
All right then. So let's jump to I Ain't One to Gossip.
You know me, I ain't one to gossip.
So news came out this week. Lots of news on EastEnders every week. We seem to get it just after we've released the episode, and they've talked about the set extension. So they've obviously built the new set. There's been a few new bits and pieces around the square that we kind of spotted. The back gardens, that brilliant drone shot that we saw when they first were introduced to the new set.
Yeah.
But now they're introducing 2 new parts. One of them. Prepare for shenanigans. One of them is a warehouse.
But Shenanigan Warehouse is getting a massive upgrade.
But they're actually building one. They're actually building a specific set for warehouse shenanigans. It's like they're trolling us, Rob.
It's like they're trolling you. I've no issues with this whatsoever. Shenanigan Warehouse deserves to be up there with the Vic. And it may well end up being part of the Vic, actually, because what they're saying is that they'll be using the old set as sort of the basis for some of these new sort of areas to be built on. Now, I have to say that this actually fills me full of confidence, because the fact that they are continuing to sort of build upon Albert Square and sort of kind of putting more into the universe of Walford in terms of set building and money spent on it and all that sort of thing is a good sign for the show, actually. The fact that the BBC is still willing to chuck money at EastEnders to this degree is a very, very good thing. So we should be pleased about this, actually.
I am pleased with that regard. You're absolutely right. But it doesn't scare me. That's a really ridiculous thing to say. But I look at Coronation Street and what they've done at the Media City Studios, and they keep building more sets and more sets and more sets, and it feels like it's less. It feels like less of a kind of a show. It feels like you're in a bubble, in a world. Do you know what I mean? It's like its own separate kind of fictionalized world where I quite like that occasionally they were able to kind of jump outside of Albert Square and record. But I do understand why, because obviously it's easier to record in a dedicated set. It's much quicker. It stops press from getting leaked photos. So I do get that. I get the reasons why. But it also worries me a little bit that perhaps there's talks in the pipeline of a 5th episode being thrown in, because they'll be able to record.
Really?
They'll be able to record much quicker. They'll be able to do much episodes. What do you think?
I'd be surprised if there was I'd be surprised if there was a 5th episode, because I feel like the 4 episode format works really well at the moment, and and EastEnders is still the site with the least amount of episodes compared to all the other 3.
Thankfully,
Hollyoaks is on kind of Monday to Friday, as is Emmerdale, and Corrie's on like 17 episodes a week or something or whatever. So the way that EastEnders does it, it works really well in my opinion. Now I get what you mean about that. I mean, what you mean is that like it's a shame to sort of lose location filming and all that kind of thing. I think what needs to be, it doesn't necessarily mean that because they're building these new sets on the old set, it means that it's going to be connected to Albert Square. It might simply mean it's similar to like how they might use the Elstree car park to film back scenes of the hospital, for example. It just means that they're going to be. It's going to be easier to do scenes outside of the immediate Albert Square, which is something that drives me mad, where, the characters just won't leave the square for no reason whatsoever. A special occasion, let's go to that pub down the road, the one that we go to every single day. You just wouldn't do that. So I like the idea of them being able to sort of expand in terms of the fact that they might be able to make more of London happen on screen, or more outside of the square happen on screen. So that's potentially exciting.
It says in the article, which is in the Metro, that was written by Stephen Patterson, that they're adding shipping containers as well. So get ready for another. Do you remember
more human trafficking?
Yeah. Remember, what was it? What's her name? Why can't I remember their names? Keanu and. Louise, they got trapped in a container that time. This reminds me of that.
Yes.
Obviously, it doesn't remind me very well, but it does remind me. Anyway, shops, houses, 9 shipping containers, and a new large warehouse set, which is going to be situated on the old Albert Square was before. And obviously, they've just inherited the old Holby City set as well for the hospital scene. I mean, they've never used we've never been in hospital as much as we've been in hospital recently.
I know, they're getting their use out of it, aren't they?
Big time.
I think it's exciting. It doesn't necessarily, I think it gives them more creative opportunities, hopefully, to sort of expand the universe, and not necessarily for it to be within Albert Square, but like I say, outside of the square, and they can make out that it's in London, and different restaurants and different venues and all that kind of thing. There's potential there, I think. Especially a warehouse. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a warehouse. It means they can do a lot in a warehouse. A warehouse is effectively maybe a massive studio that they can do all sorts in, and kind of really spend their money around that way. You don't know how it's going to.
There'll be shenanigans. I'm telling you right now.
Of course there will.
In fact, if they don't name that plot of the studio
Shenanigan Warehouse,
or Shenanigan A, or Shenanigan Studio 1, or something like that, then they've missed a trick.
Yeah, maybe.
And I would be happy if they want me to cut the ribbon as well, the red ribbon. I'll be there with my golden scissors.
I declare Shenanigan Warehouse open.
Yep, I'll throw a bottle of champagne at one of the warehouse windows, smash it, and make it even more realistic.
£200 bottles.
I mean, you're right.
Marvellous.
They could. We say warehouse. It could be a warehouse for a new textile set, for argument's sake, or a new factory that's going to employ Stacey, so she's got less money problems, or something along those lines. It could be 1,000,001 different things. But as soon, it's like when something happens and you can just feel the chill going up your spine and the goosebumps on the back of your neck happen.
You just heard the word warehouse and you went into post-war flashbacks.
I did. I honestly, it was just terrible times. But no,
WTSD.
Yeah.
Warehouse traumatic stress disorder.
Entirely. But like you say, it shows confidence in the show, which is again a lovely welcome thing. it's building. The popularity of the show is building, despite what people are saying about the ratings. They are creeping up. The ratings are creeping up.
They are,
and that includes. Don't forget that they are still releasing the episode in the morning, so you don't know how many people are watching it on iPlayer while they're eating their cornflakes of a morning. You know, so I think BBC have seen a good thing coming. They've got themselves a great executive producer at the moment. They've got themselves some fantastic storylines. They're in a really strong place. And that's why I'm not doing a podcast about it in 3 weeks' time.
What a time. That makes perfect sense to leave. The show's good at the moment. That's it. I'm not going to talk about it anymore.
Well, you might as well end on a high. That's what I say.
Yeah. We leave them wanting more. All right. So hopefully that's us done for another week. Hopefully all visuals will return next week. And we'll all be back to normal for our final, is it 3 weeks? 4 more episodes after this one? Three more episodes?
Yep, so third, second, and the penultimate in 2 weeks' time. And then the final on the 1st of April. Get your tissues ready. It's going to be a sad one.
An emotional wreck, so I am. It's going to be very, very sad. But you've still got time to email us and send us all your comments and everything like that, and you can do that by doing the following. Contact us on Twitter and Instagram at Walford Weekly. You can find us on Facebook at Walford Weekly Podcast. On YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell to get notifications about our spoiler videos. And you can email us on Apple, Podbean, Spotify, or any of your favourite podcast sites on robwalfordweekly@gmail.com or alexwalfordweekly@gmail.com. Right, I'm off for a driving lesson now, Alex, because it's snowing.
Oh, I know.
I'm gonna be doing donuts all around the road. It's gonna be marvellous.
I want you to do it live. I've asked
live streaming.
I asked Rob to live stream it to us. Although don't use the live stuff we normally use. Use a different.
No, it doesn't work. I won't go via our website. Trust me.
Go on a Zuckerberg source or something like that. You know, you'll be fine with that. But I must say
MySpace.
Yes, MySpace. God, all right. I must say to everyone that Rob's been an absolute star this week. Because he not only changed his timetable, he had to then sit for half an hour while I screamed blue murder at my laptop trying to get everything to work.
He seems like such a genuine, kind of nice, happy bloke. But honestly, Alex is really, really, really abusive when he's angry. Gamers rage, you heard of, you know? That's
I've broken the joypad with 1 or 2 in my past. I really have.
Angry man. So we will all being well be back in your eyes and ears this same time next week. So until then, it's goodbye from me.
And
thank you, dog.
And your dog.
It's goodbye from my dog Monroe as well. Yes.
It's goodbye from Charlie the cat and myself, Alex. Have a good one. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.